Hello and welcome back to Football Daily, where today, amid the postponement of football for the foreseeable future, we're bringing you 7 times football stopped. Let's get into it. Chile Riots 2019. In 2019, the Chilean Football Association took the extraordinary decision to cancel their football league system for the first time in 86 years. Demonstrations in the South American nation originated in the capital Santiago, where secondary students began protesting increases to the city's metro subway ticket system. This quickly spread across the country as a protest against inequality, leading to mass vandalization and the worst civil unrest in Chile since the end of Augusto Pinochet's military dictatorship in the 1990s. But while football continued to be played during those years of strife, it would come to a grinding halt last season. Unable to guarantee safety for the players, the councils of presidents of the Chilean Professional Football Association voted to finish proceedings in the country's top 3 divisions with just 6 rounds to go. The decision meant runaway leaders Universidad Católica were named champions of the Primera División, but the consequences were much worse for those teams fighting for promotion to the top tier of Chilean football. With relegation and promotion cancelled, domestic giants Universidad de Chile avoided a first demotion since 1989, while Santiago Wanderers, who were 3 points clear with 3 games to play at the top of the second division, would miss their chance to go up. La Liga Player Strike 2011. In comparison to the rest of this list, the strikes held by players in La Liga back in 2011 are on a lesser scale. However, it did affect the league and the opening day of the season. The Spanish top tier has always looked at ways to promote their division. The potential of La Liga games taking place in other countries was suggested back in 2019, with the Spanish FA quickly rubbishing them. But back in 2011, clubs wanted a law which stated at least 1 game a week must be on terrestrial free-to-air television in a bid to promote the league to be revoked. There were several game weeks left of the season, but the next round of matches was going to be postponed as players went on strike over the dispute of television revenue. However, the Spanish courts overruled the players, forcing them to play and finish the season. But it didn't end there. In August 2011, the start of the Spanish league season was delayed after the Players' Union and the league failed to agree a deal to avert a strike. This was because players wanted a guaranteed wage fund, meaning they'd be paid even if their clubs became insolvent. Around 200 players in the top 2 divisions had not been fully paid by cash-strapped clubs, some of which were in bankruptcy protection. Players were said to be owed up to £43 million in unpaid salaries. The strike went ahead and all clubs missed the first game week of the 2011-12 season, successfully changing their contracts to allow a break if they're not paid for 3 consecutive months. MLS 9/11. The single deadliest terrorist attack in history, 9/11 shook the world to its core. With 2 of the 4 hijacked planes causing the collapse of the World Trade Center buildings, fatalities reached nearly 3,000 civilians. Of course, this put trivial matters such as football and other sports in perspective. And with the entirety of America in mourning, the MLS commissioner Don Garber, alongside his deputy Ivan Gazidis, decided to cancel the rest of the regular season. Garber later admitted that football in America was on the verge of collapse, with the league making a loss of £191 million in its first 5 years of existence. This tragedy only worsened what seemed like a failing venture. Due to the cancellation of fixtures, the league was judged on points per game, and the playoffs commenced 9 days after the attacks. The eventual winners of the MLS Cup were the San Jose Earthquakes, with the young Landon Donovan finding the net before Dwayne De Rosario scored the golden goal winner. Whilst America was recovering from 9/11, MLS started to overcome its problems too, with the USMNT reaching the quarter-finals for the 2002 World Cup, reigniting interest in the sport and in turn helping MLS become what it is today. World War II. In the aftermath of World War I, momentous steps of progression were taken in football. The first World Cup was played in 1930, with Uruguay taking home the spoils. The WM formation, innovated by Herbert Chapman, led him to 2 First Division titles, and the Wunder team, which included Josef Bichan, was formed. Unfortunately for the Austrian team, they only managed to win 1 cup with their plethora of talent, due to the outbreak of World War II and the Anschluss to Nazi Germany. Much like the previous war, English League football came to a halt. But this time, the Home Office announced that a revised programme would be allowed, providing it didn't interfere with national service and the industry. The Wartime League was born. Regional football was introduced, but not without protest. Due to there being 2 southern leagues, the 11 London teams were split up, with the club's directors fuming at the decision. Londoners eventually made their own league, but as reflected in the rest of wartime football, quality fluctuated. Maximum capacity crowds of 15,000 could flood to see 8-man Arsenal lose 3-0 to an 11-man Watford, but see a full-fledged Gunners beat them 11-0 just 3 months later. As a result, statistics from the wartime league era of football would not be counted as official, as if they were, Jackie Milburn would be Newcastle's all-time top scorer instead of Alan Shearer. Professional footballers were once again conscripted to join military service, and this was the case across Europe. For instance, Bert Trautmann, a Luftwaffe member, was captured by the British, transferred to an English POW camp, stayed in England after the war and became one of the best goalkeepers in the country, winning the FA Cup in 1956 despite breaking his neck with 17 minutes left to play. English football kick-started again in 1945, with the FA Cup from the first round to the quarter-finals being made two-legged fixtures to make up for the lack of First Division football. Derby County beat Charlton 4-1 in the final, with the winners taking home bronze medals due to the shortage of gold in the country post-war. Egyptian Premier League 2011-12. Fan violence is an issue that has plagued world football for years. From the Heysel Stadium disaster of 1985 to the abandonment of Olympiacos vs Panathinaikos in 2019, it always finds a way to rear its ugly head. And the Port Said Stadium riot in Egypt was no different, as it brought its domestic league to a standstill for 2 years. As a heavyweight of African football with an unbeaten 7 African Cup of Nations trophies to their name, Egypt has always been hugely passionate about the beautiful game. Their love of international football obviously crossed over into their domestic league, where clubs like Al Ahly and Zamalek reign supreme. But with passion sometimes come problems, and the Pharaoh nation was not immune to these issues. Unrest at football matches in North Africa grew in 2011 due to political unrest that had swept the region. Things came to a head in Egypt when, in a league game featuring Al Masry and Al Ahly in the northern city of Port Said, a pitch invasion at the final whistle by the Masry fans left 72 Ahly fans dead, with a further 2 people killed and 500 injured. The away team had to be helicoptered from the stadium, while the police came under heavy criticism for appearing to do little to prevent the premeditated assault. The Egyptian government immediately halted the league, eventually postponing it for 2 years, while the final prosecutions handed out were 11 death sentences, 10 15-year prison sentences, 9 10-year prison sentences, and 13 5-year prison sentences. World War I. The last campaign in English football before the Great War broke out was the 1914-15 season. Everton were crowned champions for the second time in their history, and Arsenal were eventually promoted to the top tier in dubious circumstances, after finishing 5th with their chairman supposedly bribing John McKenna, the league's chairman, relegating Spurs to the second division in the process. But club politics aside, football was booming in Britain before Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, with a mammoth 120,000 people attending the 1913 FA Cup final. As war was declared, naturally football was no longer a priority. Therefore, the English Football League was suspended between the years of 1915 and 1919. With an estimated 5,000 professional footballers in Britain at the time, around 2,000 of those joined military service. When the war to end all wars finished on the 11th of November 1918, there were a total of 40 million military and civilian casualties. Among the dead were Walter Tull, one of the first black players to play professional football, William Baker, a Southern League title winner with Plymouth, and 9 Bradford City players. Top division football commenced once again in 1919, with West Brom being crowned champions while Aston Villa claimed the first post-war FA Cup victory, captained by Andy Duckett, who was also a first-class cricketer for England after he returned from World War I. Coronavirus 2020. So we land on today, where the spread of the coronavirus has led to indefinitely suspended league and cup competitions across the globe. At the time of writing, there are only a few recognised football leagues who are still playing professional football, despite monitoring decisions from other footballing bodies, including Russia, Argentina, Turkey and Brazil. The CBF in Brazil has suspended competitive fixtures, but the regional state championships, for example, could continue, as they don't come under their jurisdiction. Controversial Brazilian President Bolsonaro has criticised the decision, but when the mastermind behind Flamengo's Copa Libertadores win, Jorge Jesus, has tested positive for the virus and unfortunately lost a friend in Portugal due to COVID-19, stopping all unnecessary activity seems the only logical solution. However, these unprecedented measures throw football into the depths of uncertainty. As it stands, Champions League football, promotions and relegations all hang in the balance, and these represent significant potential revenue for the clubs involved in each scenario. For example, a side who reached the Champions League round of 16 could earn a maximum of €32 million. Liverpool, winners of the trophy last year, took home a cool £75 million. As for surviving in the Premier League, the lowest a team received, Huddersfield Town in 20th, was £96 million. Compare that to the average amount without parachute payments in the Championship, which was recorded at around 10 million in 2018, and you can not only see why this season means so much to the likes of Norwich, Villa and Bournemouth, but also to Leeds, West Brom and the playoff hopefuls. But any delay to the regular season will give headaches to UEFA, as Euro 2020 has been postponed until next season, as confirmed by the president Alexander Ceferin. Fortunately for UEFA, these migraines can be solved quickly by money, as according to David Ornstein from The Athletic, they require a whopping £275 million in compensation from football clubs and leagues to push their coveted competition back. This is despite Ceferin giving a speech which proclaimed purpose over profit. But with the pandemic only starting to reach its fast stage in the UK, it's anyone's guess as to whether we'll be seeing the Jordan Henderson Premier League trophy lift shuffle within the next 3 months. So those are our 7 times that football stopped, but can you think of any others? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, drop us a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell to never miss a video. We'll see you next time.